as always, just overall thoughts on tonight's match.
I thought we were lackluster. I thought we never really got going. And I think the frustrating part about that is when it's the whole team, you've got to look at everything that we've done to prepare. I think I said prior to the game that we'd set the tone that it's games like this that this is going to determine sort of our season. It's not games against Kansas, it's games like today, and unfortunately we didn't turn up for it. So I said to the players at the end, I think, I have to take responsibility for that, but I think we have to understand why that is. Because I thought we looked lackluster, we were flat, we never really got going even when, the substitutions came on, Emery hits the bar, but we never really enforced ourselves on the game. Disappointing.
And then tactically, you had played the back five against Orlando and Kansas and played it again tonight. I'm wondering if that's something you think we'll see more of this season, if it's because of Houston's personnel or what personnel you had available.
Yeah, I think it's something that we can continue to use. I think the interesting thing about today is we play exactly the same way, both teams. And I think we struggled to find ways in which we could make the game not 1v1. I think they did a better job of it at times. But there wasn't much between the two teams. You see that in chances created and all those things. But I just think in the moments we needed that little bit of quality, we didn't have it. And then as the game goes on, you're trying to force a few things and all those types of things. So, just overall, just disappointing with the overall performance.
All right, we'll go here to Jada and then Grant over there.
Thanks for taking the time, Laura. I wanted to ask, because Emery and Maddie did make a little bit of a impact on the game, was there, looking back, was there any thought of wanting maybe make subs a little earlier because of the fact that you guys weren't playing a lot of energy?
No, not really. I think there's a lot of nuances into why we did it. Obviously, we made an early sub with G relatively early. I think we gave Emery, Shea and Ainsley 25 plus minutes. There's enough time to change games in those moments. We conceded right before we made the first change. I don't think we needed to make them earlier. I think, we went with the starting lineup for a reason. Unfortunately, we just couldn't turn it around.
So, Coach, you mentioned what could determine the season is not so much games like Kansas versus Kansas City, but games like today. I think I get what you mean, but can you expand on that a little, please?
Yeah, I think, we have to look at who's going to be in and around us, and how do we make it that we become above them and not below them. And last year, that was a big struggle for us. We actually did okay against the top teams, but against the ones that we're fighting against, we didn't get a ton of points. And we've done a decent job of that this year with scraping a point out in Bay, beating North Carolina away, all those little things. The two games that I think we come away and we're disappointed with over the stretch we've had is this one and Angel City. So I think, we can turn the tide for sure, and picking up wins against Kansas help when you don't win a game like today. They sort of even themselves out, but you can't have that as a pattern or you're not going to get where you want.
First answer, you also said that the team needed to you all needed to look at yourselves and ask why this all happened. Can you yourself answer that question? Why do you think that, the team didn't show up tonight? Why it was lackluster? Why can you, and what can you do differently next time? Yeah,
honestly, I don't know. There was nothing different in how we prepared. We prepared the same way. If we hadn't have addressed the fact that, Kansas is a game that I know we're going to turn up for, and these are games that we have to make sure we turn up for, I'd have put that as a reason, but I can't say that because we talked about it. We're back in tomorrow, so it'll be good to, and we have a very vulnerable, honest room. Obviously, straight after a game is not really the best time to have those conversations because of the emotion of it. but we'll wake up tomorrow and we'll go in and we'll be very, analytical for ourselves, so we can try and make sure it doesn't happen again. And we did the same after Angel City, and we tweaked a few things after that. So I'm no doubt we'll have a few things that we want to tweak after today.
All right, then we'll go here to Nico.
After going down, there were a couple close opportunities, hitting the crossbar. Dickey made a couple of good saves. Compared to the team last year, something that we just didn't see as often, to have that push, that heavier push for an equalizer. So what would be any positives to take away from this game to go into the next games for?
I don't think we pushed too much, if I'm honest. I think we had, obviously, Emery had her one chance, and Shea, the header, and Maddie Mercado's shot. But we weren't really peppering them, I didn't think. So I think that's something that we can look at and be better at, is how can we really push in those moments. It's actually something we spoke about this week, of game management stuff. I just think that there was a bit of a lack of belief as the game wore on, which, again, I think maybe creeps in from players that were here last year, where we sort of sold ourselves short occasionally last year. And again, I think that's the thing that I'm very conscious doesn't creep into us, because we're not the team that we were last year. We're in a much better place than we were. And this isn't disastrous, it's just really disappointing and will hurt, because I think when you've turned up, like Orlando really, when you've turned up and you've performed and the result doesn't go your way, you believe that you're going to be able to turn that around. I think the hardest losses are when you don't believe you've performed well. And that's what Angel City and today is. We know we didn't perform to the level that we can. They tend to be the hardest ones to swallow.
And if you could expand on what you thought of Claudia's performance after those couple saves.
I honestly think Claudia has been, if not the best goalkeeper in the league this season, she's definitely up there in my opinion. And I'm sure I'm biased, but she has grown a lot. She's matured a lot. Me and her had a really good conversation after Angel City. I actually went and watched the US national team train, and I came back and said, there's no way you shouldn't be in that. And the reason you're not in it is you. It's things that you can change. It's in your control. And I'm not picking the team. That's not my job. But I think that if she continues on the trajectory that she's on, I believe she's got every single tool to be able to be this country's number one goalkeeper. I think the ceiling for her is still really high. She's very young as a goalkeeper. And I think that there's loads of ceiling ahead of her. But I think what she's shown this year is consistency in performances. She makes big saves. That was a knock on her, that she didn't necessarily do that before. She's doing that now. She's the best goalkeeper I've ever seen off a cross. And her feet are great. So she's got all the attributes. She's just got to keep pushing.
All right, we'll end here with Jeff.
In the midfield, we've seen a few matches now run with Haz and Sam and them, and we got to see Haz going forward a bunch more today, and she commented that was a bit of a plan, but also with the game presented. How do you feel about some of those partnerships that you're starting to see as players are getting multiple matches together?
Yeah, I think again, Sam and Haz worked really hard today. I think they weren't on their own, but I think some of the qualities we got higher up the field wasn't quite where they would want it. But I do think that they've got a decent partnership going. I think the next layer for us is how do we ignite our front line? Whoever's up there, Jordan, Lynn, G, Maddie, Darlene, Emery, whoever it is, how do we ignite them into getting more and more opportunities? Because I think that's the key for us right now. We win games 1-0 or we lose games 1-0, and I think that the turning of the tide of that, we've got to really dig in on that, I think.
Okay, we'll close here with Bella.
Most people probably don't think of like a goalkeeper as a position that might change the game, but it was the first game that regular season game, Jane Campbell has been on the bench since 2017. Were you surprised to see Abby Smith start, and do you think that changed anything for Houston about how they played or played you?
I don't think it changed the way they played us, but yeah, I mean, it was a surprise. I don't think anyone was ready for that. Obviously, I worked with Abby at Utah, so she's experienced and she knows what it takes to be good in this league, and she made a great save off Maddie Mercado. Unfortunately, we didn't really make her do much else, and I think that that's something that we've got to look at.